What's up, everyone? Shane Santacroce here, and today we're going to make it happen again with part 2 with Juliana and Victoria. We came back with a second part because things got interesting. We had a lot of really good conversation. It got off track a little bit from what our main goal was to talk about, but I think in essence it did stay relative to the subject, right? Mm-hmm. And I love to have guests on where we can have conversations that may be controversial in some areas or to some people, may be a little combative, but we don't allow our emotions to get involved. So I don't think any lesser than either one of them and vice versa. I hope. I don't know yet. We'll see the end of this podcast, right?
The truth will come out at the end.
Exactly. But ultimately, we can have good conversation and try to understand. I also want to emphasize, too, is that when I'm having conversation, I play devil's advocate a lot, right? And either side that I'm on talking, it doesn't necessarily mean I agree, but I can understand. And I think that's one thing that I've always tried to do is that even if I don't agree with you, I want to understand how you feel because we can then find a middle ground or at least a peace, right? A place where we can come together, discuss ideas. And typically the majority of the subjects we always talk about, especially some of the more controversial ones, and I think this goes for everywhere in society, we all agree that we want certain things, right? We want equality. We want, safe schools. We want all these things that every side that you're on wants the same thing. We all have different ideas on how to get there. And that's where the controversy and argument comes in, right? So we can at least understand how the other person thinks or feels or believes. We might actually have an opportunity to come together and create a solution. So those of you in politics, take that advice because you might actually get somewhere. So anyway, for those of you who watched the last episode, Juliana and Victoria, I'll let you guys just introduce yourselves again, and we'll pick a topic and run with it. All right, we'll try to kind of finish off where we ended last time, start off where we ended last time and see where it takes us. Victoria?
Hi, my name is Victoria. I am 23 years old. I graduated from the University of Florida in undergrad a year ago, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in medical physiology and pharmacology through the UF College of Medicine, and I'm applying to medical school next year.
Hi, my name is Juliana. I'm 20 years old, and I'm going to law school in the fall.
Now, what's interesting is, again, when we talk about their ages, I have a couple of years on you guys. I know you might not believe it or not, but I have a couple of years on you. And 20 and 23 years old, they have huge futures ahead of them. And they're already in a very professional industry in real estate. And they've far exceeded expectations on what someone their age would bring to the table, male or female, right? Just someone your age and your generation. So it's a little bit different when it comes to work ethic. I'm sure you both know that. So it's a very interesting conversation to have when you're speaking to someone at a younger age that has so many goals and has already accomplished so much, right? And there's just so much more to come. You haven't even touched on your level of success that you're going to, kind of hit in the future. So I'm excited about that. And for those of you out there watching, you might learn something today. So last time we were here, we were talking about being a professional, attractive woman. And you know what? I thought about that a lot, and we added the attractive part in there, right? Mm-hmm. And here's why I wanted to ask, right, is does that actually make a difference, right?
No.
From being a woman, right? So we talked about that because that's a lot of times, and you actually brought something to my attention, how people don't talk about certain things, like men making the decision on when I want to have a family. So we always go into this being an attractive woman in a professional space. What about just being a woman in a professional space? And then I started thinking, and I made some phone calls to some other women I work with that, are they considered a model-esque type or something of that nature? So is it more difficult for a woman if she is attractive or if she isn't, or is it relatively the same? So I want to get your opinion on that. Tori, you want to go first?
I think it's definitely more difficult being an attractive woman. You're surrounded by so much doubt and so many preconceived notions that these people have about you and who you are and what you're capable of doing, that it's like, it doesn't, obviously their opinions don't change who we are and what we're capable of, but everyone always has that first impression, first assumption of us.
I actually think it's based less on the attractiveness, but on the presentation of yourself. Like we have a model here, and I'm sure people look at you all the time and don't expect you to be as smart as you are because of the way you present yourself, not even just because you're attractive.
Correct.
I think a lot of times we shame women for putting on makeup and wearing heels and doing things that society expects of us, and then because you're doing all of these things, you're doing it to impress men, or you're doing it to get further into the field. So I think it's less about how attractive you are and more about how you present yourself.
You know, it's interesting, right? Because there's just so many different aspects to this, right? So I could look at the fact that, well, a woman who's not as attractive won't get the attention that an attractive woman would. So for example, in sales, right, an attractive woman's going to walk in, a guy typically, right? And again, we talk about this stuff. I'm not saying every man, every woman, right? But we're talking about societal norms, like the typical man's going to look because it's an attractive woman. At the very least, give them the time of day to hear what they're talking about, right? Only because they're attractive. So if a less attractive, and I also want to clarify this before you guys beat me up. When we talk about less attractive, I manage a lot of women, as you guys know. So I don't look at a less attractive woman. I don't see a woman that way. Everyone has a quality that is amazingly beautiful and will present that to the person that's right for them, right? However, in a business sense, right, a quote unquote less attractive one walks in and maybe she's amazing, she's professional, she commands, respect and presence. Well, that might turn a man off. And I don't mean sexually, but I mean in the sense now, do I want to waste my time because she looks like a bitch?
Just interest.
Right? She looks like a bitch. Which you can also do when you're attractive. Let's call it what it is. But again, a man is less likely to view them in that sense if you are attractive. So then we talk about the makeup aspect. And it is so interesting. So, I do feel that there is a line, and there is far too many women that do certain things to themselves, whether it's getting dressed a certain way or putting on makeup or changing their body, that they do it for other men. And they could argue the fact all they want, it's not for men. And again, I'm not saying every woman does it for this reason, right? But the majority, I don't want to say majority, there are many, far too many women that do things to themselves or present themselves a certain way just for the attention of men. And then what's even more interesting is that when they get that attention from the wrong man, they're upset about it.
Well, I do think that this is passed down. Like, I think a lot of women don't get procedures done and change themselves specifically for men, but it's to look like the women that are putting themselves out there, and they're like, oh, well, I want to look like her, but that girl is getting this attention, so then it's indirectly they're getting that effect.
Yeah, well, 100%. And you have both sides, right? You have the people who are negative and beat them up because they just want to look a certain way. They feel good about themselves. Listen, when I go into a board meeting, my presence is very important to me. Very important. And I've talked about this many times over about having style and looking good and presenting yourself a certain way, right? Even as a man. And you'll hear successful people, show up in T-shirts and shorts or flip-flops, and, well, you're already a multimillionaire, so that's okay. You show up however you want. People come to see you. But when you started early on in your career, if you walk into a board meeting and you're not representing yourself properly, you're looked down upon. That's just reality, right? So where is that middle ground for women? And at what point do we stop teaching? And interesting enough, this morning, I wish I could look at my phone, but there was a TikTok that I saw from this girl that I follow that writes songs. And she babysits this kid, and I posted on my IG if anyone wants to look at it. But she said that the little girl was going to her first pool party that's mixed boys and girls. So all the girls went to Victoria's Secret to buy bathing suits. And one of the girls that she was with said that makes you look fat and flat. So the girl wrote a song about this, right? And it was a short, 15, 30-second clip, whatever it was, in the song that she wrote. And before the end, I'll actually put a link to that TikTok in the description here, because if you have a little girl, you should definitely show them this. And just basically like a song that she would have written to herself as a little girl. And it's like, I know Victoria's Secret, and she's a man that lives in Ohio, right? And it was created by a dude. It was just like a good little message for young girls that are growing up and hearing these things from their own peers, right? The little girls are beating on themselves. I have 4 daughters, so I hear it on a regular basis. And it is kind of crazy all the things that a woman has to take into consideration before they present themselves to the world every single day.
Absolutely. And what sucks is like what you were saying earlier, how, you know, a woman will, it's not every woman, but it is a great majority. I don't, not a majority, but a lot of women. Exactly. Too many women who kind of ruin it for the others that don't. And so it's like the women have the double standard where it's like, okay, if she walks into a room and she does have her makeup done and she does have, you know, nice clothes and is very well put together, it's like, oh, her priorities aren't right. She's so focused on what she looks like. She wants this attention for men. Like her, you know, she's not like a focused person, where it's like if a man walks in with a nice suit, hair done, you know, freshly shaved, it's like, oh shit, he's got his stuff together. He's on the right track.
It is. It's the truth, right? We look at, it's just such a I don't know, it is a major double standard, but.
Well, there's a really funny meme going, and it's been going around for a very long time now, but it's what no makeup looks like, and then what men think no makeup looks like. And it's the girl, and she's like beating her face like with makeup. That's a term. And she's putting makeup on, and it comes out very light and natural. So someone that doesn't know how to use makeup wouldn't know that she's wearing makeup or not.
Yeah. But she actually has like a cake full of makeup on her face.
And this is what's perceived as like natural.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, we look at, obviously, women a lot of times use makeup to cover up their imperfections on their face, and I don't know many men that I hang out with. Well, I'm saying that I hang out with that are actively trying to cover up their pimples or a scar on their face or their the bags under their eyes. Yeah. Thank you. There isn't like a need for that, because that's just not a big deal. That doesn't make a man imperfect.
Yeah, and you know what, like, which side is pushing more these days? Is it the men pushing for girls to look this way, or is it other women pushing women to look this way?
Women pushing women.
I excuse me. I actually agree with you on that. And look, when it comes to the physical from a man, men are pigs, we're dogs, right? It doesn't matter how much makeup you have on your face. If we're into you, we're into you. Period. Right? So and again, of course, the man's going to want you to come out and look a certain way and etc. But at the end of the day, when you guys get home, if the man's into you, he's into you. It doesn't matter what you look like. Doesn't matter how much makeup you have on. That's it. And I don't want to get too graphic here, but if he's going home to go to bed with you, your makeup is irrelevant. I promise. Right? But the women I see, we talk so much about uplifting each other and empowering each other. But on a regular basis, so many women are just beating each other down.
Well, it's just it feels like a competition at this point. And I grew up with sisters, so I'm very used to like raising women up, and I support women, period. But it does feel like a competition these days. If you're going into an interview, you want to look better, you want to look well presented in comparison to your counterparts, because if you're both walking in there with the same exact resume, it's going to be the person that can present themselves better and can speak better and do all of these things just a little bit better, even if you have the same resume.
And that goes for men too, by the way. It really does go for men too. And that's why I see, in my opinion, with men, you guys go out there and use it as an excuse, right? For a woman, a little bit different, but for a man, he doesn't get all dressed up and he doesn't get the job. He sits his ass on unemployment or cries to mommy that he's broke. But why didn't you get dressed up for the job? You showed up looking like a bum. The guy that came behind you had less experience and looks fantastic. So that's still going to present his company. And I don't want to hear, oh, it's superficial. You call it whatever you want. It's reality, right? There's so many things that are happening right now that we don't agree with. We don't think it's right or wrong, but it's reality. So are you going to use the excuse in life, right? Or are you going to accept reality for what it is? And if it changes one day, great. But as of right now, this is what it is. And things have changed over the years, right? In so many ways. So maybe it will change one day. But for now, stop using the excuse, men, to not put the time into yourself. And women spend sometimes hours getting themselves ready for a specific event. I know it can be frustrating when you have 4 daughters, but men will go throw a little bit of water in their hair, throw on a jacket, walk out the door, and they're good to go. Sometimes you got to put a little time into yourself as well. So what do you guys think when you see a man that is well put together, right? What is your first reaction to that? Victoria.
In like a professional setting?
In general, you're out, you just see a man walking down the street, well put together in a suit. What is your first perception of that individual?
They're organized. They're
responsible,
mature. Good hygiene. Yeah.
Now, what about when you see a woman?
When she's put together, I'm like, wow, I want to look like that when I grow up. That I just had to make a return the other day, and I was standing in line, and I was working at home, so I just finished, and I went to make a return, and I'm standing in line, and I'm wearing sweatpants and a shirt, which is really abnormal for me. When I leave the house, I'm in jeans or a dress. Anything above that, that's what I'm in. I don't really leave the house looking like a bum. But I'm standing in line, and the man that's in front of me came from work, but he had taken off his button down. So he had the white t-shirt underneath, slacks on, and the nice shoes. And I was looking at him and I was like, wow, I feel a little embarrassed, like that I'm standing online in sweatpants. And if there was a woman next to me that had just come from work too, and she looked just as professional, I mean, I would be like, wow, I should have dressed up to make this.
And look, that's where that competitive mindset comes in, right? Mm-hmm. And who are we really competing with? Ourselves. I mean, every day you should want to be better than you were yesterday. We really should focus on competing with ourselves, but we find ourselves looking at other people and saying, oh, I want to be one day, or how is he that much better? How is she that much better? How do I get there? So I think that's really where that mindset of that, competitive nature comes into play. Right?
Yeah.
So let's get back, because we do this, right? We get off track here. Comparing the two, the attractive versus the quote unquote not so attractive woman in the workspace. Where is the line drawn, right? So where is the line drawn between, okay, I really want to present myself in a way that I feel comfortable and confident, but not too much that others feel I'm doing it for someone else? Do you feel there is a line, or you shouldn't really give a shit what anybody else thinks?
One, you shouldn't give a shit. But two, people are attracted to confidence. So if you're dressing yourself up the way you feel the most confident, you're going to be getting the most business regardless of what you look like. If you're walking into a space and you don't feel dressed enough, which makes you not confident, you aren't walking away with business.
Right. As long as you feel good. But I do think you need to take into consideration where you're at, what you're doing, like, to some extent, like, I do believe there are times where it's like, okay, like that is really just over the top, and times where it's like, okay, that's definitely not appropriate. There's obviously extremes, but as for like a middle line, I feel like it varies on how you feel and how you present yourself and what you're wearing or what you're.
So I agree. I actually agree with everything I said. So definitely understanding the environment that you're going to be in is extremely important, right? I'm the type of person that feels that you could never be overdressed, but you could be too extravagant.
When I was showing up to my new job, I was wearing heels every day. I was wearing heels and professional shirts and everything. And I realized that my coworkers weren't. They were coming very casual.
Like business casual, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I kept showing up, very dressed. And then I got a message, and the person was like, "Hey, we're coming in casual, so you know, like it's okay to dress casual at this point." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So just overdress until you know."
Yeah, I feel that you can never be overdressed, but you can be too extravagant, right? And I definitely agree that your level of confidence is what everything should be based on. When I was in my early 20s, I worked in the financial field, and everybody I worked with was much older. And I don't mean like 5-6 years older than me. I was in my 20s. They were in their 60s and 70s in some cases, right?
Yeah.
So I went above. I mean, I wore $10,000, custom-made suits, and
just to compete.
Not even so much to compete, but I don't ever feel that they were my competition, right? But they were in this industry for 40 years. And here I am for just 2.5 years, and I'm sitting in board meetings. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in these deals, right? But the respect, they didn't respect me. There was actually, and this is a true story, and I don't remember the guy's name. I wish I did, because I would totally put him on blast right now. It was a guy from AmeriQuest. And we go to this big board meeting, and he's sitting at the head of the table, and he's a big shot. I'm sitting 2 seats from him, right? He's at the head of the table. There's one person and me. And he's sitting there talking about this guy that's shutting down his offices and recruiting all his people, and he's a piece of shit, and like on and on and on. Who is this guy? How did he come into the to the industry so rapidly and take so much over and grow so big. This is nonsense. This guy named Shane, he's just going on and on and on. And I let him, right? And he was probably 65, 70 years old. And finally, I just stood up and I put my hand out. He's like, well, who are you here with? And he said to the guy sitting next to me, is this your assistant? And I put my hand out. I said, no, I'm Shane Santacroce. It's nice to meet you, right? And it just goes to show that he was completely blind. Didn't even think that I think I was probably 25 or 26 at the time. Didn't even think that someone my age could be competing with him, right?
Right.
So, for me, it was more so to get that respect and gain that respect. And in all reality, it was what I was doing. He wasn't talking about what I was wearing. He was talking about what I was doing in business, So definitely one of the more valuable lessons that I learned, because most people never saw me out of a three-piece suit, period. For many, many people that knew me, some people for 8 and 10 years had no idea what I looked like. My realtor called me one day, this is a true story. Tim Sweetman, if you're listening. And he called me one day to tell me my girl was on a boat with some buff guy with tattoos. I'm like, I'm on the boat right now. What do you mean? He's like, what? That's you? You know what I mean? So I was much better shape back then, by the way. But so I can give you a dozen examples of those type of situations. But I went above and beyond, and it didn't matter where I was going. If I was at a restaurant or a nightclub or business meeting, I was dressed to the nines, three-piece suit, tie, like that was it. I never ever took my my costume or uniform off for any reason whatsoever. So rarely would you would ever see me outside in sweatpants and slides. I made sure I was always elevating. So anyway, I think we got a pretty good perspective here on this. Let's talk. Let's. I want to hear a topic from both of you that you'd like to discuss that you deem is either important or controversial, or just that you want to give your opinion on.
Thank you for the heads up.
Right? I was just like, wow, okay.
But I want you guys to pick the topic.
Victoria,
so let's go first.
you can start.
I don't know. I think everything is pretty much what we've talked about. I feel like what I struggle with the most is being someone who is very, diverse and multifaceted and takes on a bunch of different roles, is always looked down upon or faced with all these challenges. Even just like being a woman in the field, I feel like is a struggle as is. And then adding, modeling and fitness, when I was big into fitness at the time, every little thing added as a barrier instead of an asset to me is what it felt like, just because of the challenges it would bring on and how people would have these super skewed, ideas of who I was and what I was capable of and what my priorities were and my goals were, Yeah, one interesting too, we talk about when it comes to social media, you have posts that you make about your medical career, and then you make posts about your modeling career. And you always talk about how when you make a post about your modeling career, you lose your medical field followers. And when you make a post about your medical field, you lose your modeling career followers, always.
Right? So it's like that balancing act that you have to play consistently.
Yeah.
Juliana, give me a topic that you feel that you want to talk about.
Well, I'll follow on social media for just a second and then we can move forward. But I'm a very private person when it comes to online. If I don't have the schools that I went to in my Instagram bio anywhere, because if you know me and you have a personal relationship with me, then you know where I went to school, you know where I'm going to school, you know who my friends are, you know who I'm in a relationship with, you know all of those things about me if you're in any kind of relationship with me. So I'm actually a very private person, which I actually think that's one of the reasons me and you get along so well, that we, for some reason, just mesh. But I actually want to bring up something that I was thinking about since the last time we spoke, which was the conversation of the alphas.
Okay.
And I'm bringing this up because it was a really strong idea. And it's that I believe actually that some of the best functioning relationships can be with two alphas. Do you want to know why?
Please. Because
an alpha knows when it's time to step back and let someone else take control.
Absolutely.
They know when it's time for them to take a step back and let other people shine. And I think that's why sometimes two alphas can work the best in a relationship.
So I agree with you 100%. And I definitely also agree that two alphas can work together in a solid relationship. Where I was disagreeing is that the type of person you guys were referring to was not an alpha, right? You guys were referring to somebody who had drive and was goal oriented and had passion and, you know, wanted to have this amazing career, right?
Not necessarily.
And then stay at home with the kids. They just don't go together.
Well, just tying this back to traditional gender roles for a moment. Just because a woman stays in the household doesn't mean she can't be an alpha.
Agreed.
Okay, so why would it be different for a man?
Because men and women are different in that sense, right? Most women.
Please explain this.
Okay, so you
break it down.
Do you
break
feel
it down.
So we'll start here. Are there any biological differences between men and women?
Yes, there are biological differences.
So most men, okay, are interested in things. Most women are interested in people, right? Which is why most men go into some of the higher paying jobs like engineering and mathematics, sciences, things of that nature. And most women go into things like early child care, school teachers, design, et cetera, right? So this is just a fundamental fact, right? Not my opinion, not how I feel about it.
Shane's laying out the facts.
Yeah, because I just want to be clear, because so many people blast me and they say, oh, you're just expressing your opinion. It's just a fact. Men and women are different in that sense. So a man that has this drive and these goals, and typically the majority of the time, it's for his career and to provide for his family, not so much to stay at home and raise the family. So that's why I feel it's different. Not because of any gender roles, not because society says that.
But what does that have to do with them being biologically different? That's just them, like,
because our brains think differently. Nature says a woman has a child, not a man.
Correct.
Right? Nature says a woman can breastfeed a child, not a man.
Correct.
Right? Nature says a woman is going to be more compassionate and nurturing than a man.
Okay.
Right? Those are biological differences.
Continue.
Period.
Sure.
So when we talk about the gender roles in society, yes, some men would be okay staying at home and playing that role, I guess you'd say, right? Just as some women would be more than happy to go out and build a career and play that role. But the majority of women and the majority of men are opposite. The man wants to go out and build the career. The woman wants to stay in the home, take care of kids. And again, when I say that, I also want to be clear. I don't feel when a woman's taking care of her kids that she can't work or have a job, right? That she just has to be a housewife all the time. A woman can have a job. The kids go to school. They get picked up. She comes home and does her thing. And during the day she works. Like, that's fine. But to just say a man is going to stay home and take care of the family, take care of the kids and all that,
does not make him a beta. I agree with all the points you were saying. Yes, a woman will be more compassionate.
But it can't. The man that you're saying has all this drive.
Just because he stays home with the kids, but what if he does everything else? I need.
What's everything
I'm
else?
the one who's working. I don't know. He's the one who helps with the kids. He's the one who's there to support me emotionally. He's my, the one who gets shit done around the house when I'm not there.
More of a feminine man.
What? But.
Look, do you feel that a man can have? Do you feel that there can be a masculine woman and a feminine man?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so the things that you're referring to, okay, nature tells us are feminine qualities.
Traditionally.
Well, forget, but I would also remove societal expectations.
I have to pause something for a second. I do think this is very much a generational thing that we're skipping over, where you said that women like to be teachers and work with kids and be designers. And I think for a long time, that was the only option. Mm-hmm. Women weren't allowed to be these professional
and hardcore physical manual labor jobs.
It is changing. It is changing. That's why
still
right
predominantly
now,
men. You're right, but it is changing.
99% of every job that has any type of danger is men, not women.
I understand that.
So if women have the right to do it right now, they're completely free. And you see women construction workers, right? It's no longer say that it's looked down upon.
Pause. You mentioned men taking jobs where they can make a lot of money to get a lot of things.
Typically.
Not
get things. No, they're interested in things like engineering and the sciences, right?
Sure. And then you said that women are more interested in positions like
Typically,
teaching.
yes.
Typically. Okay. But I would like to pause because I think that is a generational thing, because right now in a lot of law schools, the percentage of women attending these schools is greater than the percentage of men
100%.
attending these schools.
Law school and medical school are the two main changes
Right now,
Yeah.
we are in an opportunity. We have the opportunity to grow as professionals, as women, in any career we want.
But look at the two things you just mentioned, law and medical, which you're right.
Which
Those
we're
are the two
in.
things are changing drastically right now. What about everything else?
People can choose what they want to do.
They can, but why aren't they? If there's no difference between men and women, why aren't they choosing?
Because realistically, if I'm going to go and like, what is it called? Like logwood, like, you know,
Be a timberjack. a
exactly.
lumberjack, yeah.
Do that all day and pull these big pieces of wood around. Like I physically am not, that's a lot on my body.
So there's a difference.
Correct. But that doesn't mean that like,
That doesn't mean
because
what?
I'm not interested in it. It's, you have to come with the reality. You're right.
But
We
if
are
you were interested in it,
biologically different.
You would go do it. You'd find a way to do it.
Yeah, but we aren't saying there are not biological differences.
I understand that, but
We've
even
agreed with
even
that.
interest differences, right? There are women
But
and men are
that's
different.
taught. That's learned.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so then now when we are in one of the most open mind societies that you could possibly have, and when you look at other societies, overseas, like Switzerland or New Zealand or whoever it is that have like these, they were trying to force equality in every field. Why hasn't it not worked?
The Scandinavian countries.
The Scandinavian countries, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
You have your little backup
have
right
my
there.
backup over
right there.
Just in case.
Just so you
he's got
go.
Google open just to make
so
sure.
you know,
He's
guys, it's
referencing
not
a
two
very
against one.
specific
It's two against
progressive
two.
society.
Yes, it is a very, very specific progressive society, far more progressive than anything that we've ever seen. So, and even in the United States right now, women have the right and the ability to do anything they want. And in a lot of cases, more so than men. So, meaning resources. So,
Can you explain that a little further, please?
sure, if I wanted to get a loan from the government to open a small business, if I'm a woman, I have a much better opportunity to get that done.
That's because they haven't been given those opportunities.
Okay,
in the
so that's why I
past.
said as right now,
Okay,
more so
sure,
than men, right?
right now.
I couldn't go do that as an entrepreneur. I can't, it's very difficult for me to borrow money from any kind of government agency, right? For a woman, you are allocated a specific quota of jobs have to go to you, right? So why aren't these things changing? Right? It goes back to the gender pay gap, which is where I'm sure this conversation is going to lead at some point. So why is it that women, we always talk about lawyers, doctors, politicians, C-suite, like the high paying position, right? But why aren't we talking about if women are so interested and there's no difference between the way men and women think, why aren't they just as interested in the other things that men are doing?
I don't even know if it's interest that brings men to these options.
Okay.
I think a lot of times it comes, I don't even want to say a lot because I honestly don't know this off the top of my head, but analyzing a situation, I feel like a lot of times people can use their bodies like for labor.
It's the capability.
And it's the capability. And that's something that men can do. That a lot of men physically are stronger than women. Biologically, they have
Be
more muscle
careful what you're saying
mass.
here because this is going to be on YouTube
I know.
and you're going to get yourself in trouble here.
I know. This
But
is so
when it
tricky.
comes to
I do agree with you,
hormones,
though,
when
Julia,
it
but I
comes to
absolutely agree with you.
anatomy,
Thank you.
correct, hormones, all that stuff.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
But here's another thing too that you said that's very interesting and dead on is not so much interest, right?
Yeah, I don't
A man
think it
doesn't
is.
become a logger because he just can't wait to be in the trees and
well,
hopefully get
some
die
do.
one day, right?
Some
Yeah.
do.
Very rarely, but a lot of times men are taking jobs because they need to support their family.
Right.
Right. The majority of the time, the interest for the man is to support their family. So they'll take jobs like coal mining, bricklaying, logging, window washing on top of a skyscraper, like these dangerous, high paying jobs. Right.
Okay, but if he's in that position and he's taking that high paying position to feed his family, clearly the woman, I mean, let's say for the most part,
This is getting
not,
so complicated.
It is,
Yes,
right?
you're walking on a fine line.
And listen, on this channel, guys, we can talk about whatever we want, and you guys can blast us all we want, but we're talking about reality, right?
Let's talk about a specific scenario where a man is like, okay, well, I'm not really interested in it, but I have my wife and my 3 kids to feed, so I'm going to take this high risk position to feed my family. Okay, if that's the case, first of all, clearly the woman in the relationship is not bringing in a financial means for him to not feel that way, right? So if he feels that way, Well, I'm saying if he feels that way and he's like, okay, well, I don't like this, but I have to do it because I have to provide for my kids. That role is already established in the relationship. I mean, and the truth of the matter is, if a woman has kids and it's a mom and father situation, like, let's say, I don't know, I don't want to bring up like Titanic, but like on cruise ships, it's like, okay, well, or even on like flights, when something goes wrong, it's like, okay, you know, mothers get yourself, then get your kids, but it's like the father, you know, if something
Women
happens,
and children first.
do you get what I'm
Always.
saying? Women and children first. Okay, so in that
But
kind
now
of
you know
dynamic
that's like
of
a
a
very
relationship,
controversial thing to say.
I would like to mention something. Something came to mind. If a woman and a man are going for this super risky position, cleaning windows at the top of a building, they aren't going to choose a woman that looks like me or Victoria
Why?
over you.
Why?
because look at our muscles.
Because we're small.
But here's what's interesting.
But really, we are.
I agree.
I'm 5'4". You know the cage thing that they stand in? It'd probably come up to like my chest.
I absolutely agree with you, right? And here's what's interesting about what you said is that if a man is doing this because he has to support his family, right? He'll go out and do it. Why doesn't the woman? If there's no
She
difference.
will. If there's no man supporting, a woman will take up 3 jobs to support for her kids. That means there's no man doing that in the first
Agreed.
place.
And she'll take up things like teaching and maybe serving table. Why isn't she going after the high paying, risky jobs?
Because she doesn't, because most of those high paying jobs take up a lot of time. And if she's providing for her kids, why is she going to put herself in a situation where she could be
Same reason
and
a man would.
not lose her kids?
But the same reason a man would.
Maybe
Why is
women
it
are
any
just
different?
better at risk assessment.
Oh,
But actually,
But listen, at the end of the day, you see how when we talk about a woman, because she doesn't want to risk this, but we talk about a man, then why does a man risk his life?
I actually have witnessed a situation where it was completely on the woman to support her and her 3 kids. And
which is not uncommon nowadays.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. And she went out and she started a business.
They do whatever they have to do.
And here she is, like, making money. It is so a man could have done that.
Absolutely, a man could have done that. And a woman, just like a woman could go and get one of these higher paying jobs, right? That are risky, that are hard, right? I know somebody right now, she's been in construction her whole life. Hard woman from I think from Peru or something like that, right? Or somewhere down there. I don't remember. But anyway, point is that very hard woman, right? And if you shook her hand, you would think you were shaking a man's hand. Respectfully, I say that. She put in a lot of hard work. But she is the minority. So we're sitting here. The argument that you're making to me is that men and women, right, are the same, outside of biology, are the same. And we'll make the same
it's
choices.
not the same. Everything is skewed, but everything is skewed because of what society has taught them. These are the interests you have to take. This is what's for girls. This is what's for boys.
But when it comes down to labor jobs, the biological differences matter.
Correct.
See, look, we could really go to a far
unless it's the minority of women. There are plenty of women who are just as strong as men. But if me and you were in competition for a labor job, I wouldn't get it.
Of course. All the jobs
I wouldn't get it.
That, women are now standing up are jobs that require us to study and be brain smart and not have to. Like the only difference,
you're more interested in people,
the
right?
only difference for me is like, okay, let's say I wanted to go.
Because you're more interested in people, which is why you go thinking into like law and medical, right?
I disagree.
As a person, I am interested in people.
But I don't think because women are more interested in people in general, that's why they choose that.
Then what would you contribute that to?
Well, there are plenty of male lawyers as well that are just as interested in people.
But you guys also your whole point here, right, was that the legal and law fields in colleges have changed, which, mind you and I had this debate a while back, and you argued with me on this, right? There are more women now going into fields like medical and law. More women than men in most cases.
Going in now, correct. But
yes.
in the higher positions and in people who are established and head of residencies, head of this department, it's still very skewed, but correct. We're stepping up now. It's starting.
So why aren't they going into engineering?
A lot of women do go into engineering.
But it's still a mass majority
It depends
of
on
men.
what kind of engineering. So now are we talking about mechanical? Are we not?
Thank you, Victoria.
That goes back to our sense. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about, I could say the same thing. Depends on what kind of law. It depends on what kind of medical, right? It's the field in general.
I actually think law is always about people.
Yeah, I agree. Law and medical, I think, is always about people.
Something's not adding up here.
Yeah.
So go ahead, please speak.
No, I think that you're not really connecting your dots, but also
agree.
you are in an older generation where it's like you have.
In what sense? Give me an example.
You're in an older generation where you know, this is the traditional views and the traditional family, you know, roles and values. And our generation too is the complete opposite. I'm not saying I support our generation where it's like, okay, now you have a child, but you're not allowed to buy blue or pink, or you're not allowed to buy them dolls or trucks because you want them to choose, which normally if I have a daughter, I'd buy her a doll and have a pink room and stuff like that. Right. But now that's like looked down upon because it's like, okay, you're already putting her interest and telling her she needs to be this. She can only take interest in this. Right. So again, that's a completely different topic.
Tricky. Thank you for adding another segment.
I know exactly. So hard.
It is
You said I'm
learned.
not connecting the dots. Where am I missing?
This is what we have a full argument here. Is it backed up on every front? No, we're sitting here having a conversation. I can write you a 6-page essay on this with citations and give it to you tomorrow. But our argument is that women should have the same opportunities as men to be in jobs, but the labor jobs that require more physicality will be based on the biological differences between men and women.
But you know, there's a lot of people that are going to argue that there is no biological difference.
Okay, well,
But
for science
there
purposes,
is
hormones,
anatomy,
this is
right?
anatomy, this is all this stuff. Correct. Yes.
All right, so you know what? Let's switch it up a little bit, right?
No, please don't go into that route.
If you feel that is the case, what do you feel about transgender athletes? No, I mean, this is a big thing we're talking about here, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're talking about the biological differences.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have transgender athletes, right? Transgender women competing against biological women, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you believe that there is a biological difference and they should or should not be able to do it?
I think that I'll tie this in at the end, but technology and the internet was moving so quick that every law they would make, they would have already found a loophole on the internet so that law wouldn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. So they stopped making all of these very specific laws about the internet and started making these broad laws about the internet and internet usage, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because it was just moving too quick.
Yeah.
Not too quick. It was moving quick, which was amazing. So now we're at the point in our lives, in our generation, where people are figuring out what it means to live outside of society's original guidelines. Mm-hmm. I do think that there are biological differences between men and women. I don't think that anyone, transgender or cisgender, should be excluded from doing the things they want to do. I think this is the first time that we've experienced this in the media. And I think this is just something we're going to have to figure out as a society. That way everyone can be included.
Yeah, I agree. Like, everyone should have the opportunity to do things, right? I also believe every woman should have the opportunity to do whatever they want to do. And I think right now they do. Again, will they choose to do certain things that provide
Correct.
them more income, whatever,
but
it's up to them.
things also need to be fair.
But there is nothing at this point that says a woman can't do something she wants to do. We have a woman of color in the White House right now as vice president, right? A woman can do whatever she wants to do in this country. The opportunity is there. But now, talking about the transgender thing, don't you feel that this takes, like, where does the woman now play a role?
I don't understand your question.
If a biological male, I don't want to say man, right? If a biological male competes in sports and at 18 years old, and this is a real situation, he's in the top 200, right? But then all he has to do is transition, and a year later compete in women, and he's winning titles. I'm sorry, respectfully, she's winning titles. The biological female is what? What is her opportunity in sports? Because you're saying that we should have the opportunity. These people spend all these years training to be something special in sports. And then a man comes along and says, sorry, you're not good enough anymore.
I agree that the biological woman is definitely put at a little bit of a disadvantage. Of course,
a little bit.
Of course, now Are so many different treatments and therapies and hormone replacement and surgeries and everything where it's like you are basically a woman, but I think that your foundation will still always put you at a little bit of a disadvantage. Now, what we do about that, I don't know. I think it's really complicated. You can't say, oh, you can't participate or you can, but I do think it does put the biological woman a little bit at a disadvantage.
So also, I want to preference something too before we go further with this conversation is that I don't discriminate. I'm not transphobic. I actually manage transgender women. Mm-hmm. And again, this is new to me because I have a lot of conversations with her about what it means to be transgender, right? Mm-hmm. And she's older as well. I have 2 or 3 clients. They're older, but they're fully transitioned, right? Mm-hmm. Many years and years of hormone replacement therapy, top and bottom surgery. They are fully transitioned. So when we talk about a trans woman, she's a fully transitioned woman, mm-hmm. right? And she doesn't represent herself as a trans woman. She's a woman. That's mm-hmm. how she represents herself, mm-hmm. right? But here what we're talking about is, and again, you have to be so careful in what you say here, but mm-hmm. I'm going to say what it is. This individual still has a penis, okay? Still has the hormones that he had a year ago. Maybe they've been decreased a little bit, but had the benefits of having a man's body to compete in a woman's sport against biological females, right? And we're not talking about they're getting beat by this much. They're getting beat by this much, right? In several sports. I mean, look at combat sports. Some of these women are beaten half to death. I'm not going to get into the whole swimming thing, but again, when you see them all standing next to each other, it's a little, I don't want to say obvious, but it's pretty rough, right? When you talk about track and field, when you hear these women speak about it, and they're getting beat by 20 meters in a race, there's no chance. These women spend every day of their lives trying to shave off a half a second or a second off their time, and then they're beaten by 20 meters. There is no shot at beating that individual, period. So we talk about protecting women and empowering women. I'm sorry, we'll say female, because I know women's the right word, right? We talk about protecting and empowering females, but now we're allowing men to come in and now take over opportunities. No, because they're not qualifying.
I think women is
scholarships, things of. I agree that women is the right word.
Well, I'm saying female and male, I think, is anatomical.
Okay.
I think women, man.
So a woman is walking around with a penis, it's still a male for now.
Honestly, I can't really speak on that.
That's why I need to say woman, right? What is a woman? Somebody just did a documentary on that, and you should watch if you haven't. It'll kind of blow your mind.
If someone, I don't know. If someone introduces themselves to me as a woman, then I will think they're a woman, no matter what's in their pants. Like,
I agree.
If they are identifying themselves as a woman, to me, they are a woman. I don't care.
But you're assuming they're a female or a woman. That's what I'm saying. You said if someone comes up to me and they introduce themselves as a woman, I'm going to assume they are a woman. What does that mean? You're making the assumption of what?
No, I'm not going to.
I'm not assuming anything. I don't even
think
I said that.
If you tell me that you want to be called Jane and you have a beard, I'm going to call you Jane.
That's what you are. No, I was just asking on how she had said it. Like she was like, okay, I'm going to make the assumption that
I'm saying like if you came up to me and you said I'm a woman, I'd say okay. If Shane was like I identify as a woman, I'd be like okay,
yeah,
you
exactly.
do you. Like
I agree.
I don't care. But I'm saying I think female and male is.
Well, and that's why I moved it back, because I didn't want to offend anybody.
But I'm not 100% on that.
And look, I didn't want to offend anybody that identifies as a woman, mm-hmm. right? That's because now these days a man can get pregnant, a woman has a penis, right? So I didn't want to offend anyone, which is why I went back to the female male. So
if anyone has experience with this that's listening, please. You're always welcome to give feedback.
So look, I manage a few transgender women, and we speak very openly about a lot. I've learned so much in the past 2 years, because fortunately, she understands. I'm asking questions because I want to learn, I want to understand, mm-hmm. and a lot of people don't really understand the horrors that they go through. And I say that with the utmost respect to any trans people out there listening. What she has gone through to transition her body physically from a man to a woman. I mean, the stories that she tells me and the types of surgeries and the problems and the complications and this and that, it's unfathomable for something. Like I could never ever put myself through that. So I commend you for that. But now it just says, I can today, if I wanted to go, I'm not a world-class fighter. Okay. But if I got into the ring with a woman my exact size, my weight, there's a very good chance that I'm going to beat her. Reality, right? Very, very good chance. If you take a male and a female, okay, that are the same body size, height, all that, same training, a male's physical body has things that give him a natural and biological advantage over a woman. This is just reality. So, when all this stuff started coming out a few years back, I had a conversation with somebody. I said, what's going to happen when a male is not doing well in his sport and decides, well, I'm just going to become a female, and now I can get scholarships, I can get sponsorships, I can make money, get contracts, all of this stuff. And everybody said to me, well, who would do something like that? And now how do we know they're not?
You just said yourself you couldn't imagine going through something like that.
But these are people who are not transitioned.
All of the procedures.
But these are people that last year identified as a male, he, she, man, whatever you want to call it. And a year later say, well, hey, I'm a woman. You didn't have to get any kind of surgeries. Maybe you took some testosterone or estrogen blockers or whatever you had to do to bring your hormone levels down a bit. But you've already created the body that you're in, right? So now a year later, I'm a professional female athlete, right? And now the biological female no longer, in many cases, not all, in many cases, will lose out on opportunities like scholarships, sponsorships, making time to go to big events, right? They're getting pushed out because of biological male bodies coming in who are failing, okay, or definitely not exceeding in the male competitive field and now dominating drastically in the biological female field.
Correct.
So,
but at the same time, if they did have bottom surgery, what does that change in the grand scheme of things?
I don't think that necessarily the surgery for me only changes when you're talking about like bathroom, stuff like that. But ultimately when a person's body goes several years of hormone therapy, it will definitely change in a lot of capacities.
They have to before you get surgery.
Exactly, right? So your body changes drastically when you've gone several years.
Correct.
If I right now suppress my testosterone and start taking estrogen and growing boobs and my, things started changing, I'm not going to be as strong as I am now.
But I don't agree
3-4 years.
that after years of taking it, if you had been born a female at the time and had grown and developed and gone through puberty as a female, you wouldn't revert back to exactly that.
Well, I mean, we're not seeing female going into men's. We're not seeing transgender. And again, maybe if there's an example out there, please send it in. But we're not seeing transgender men, biologically born females competing in biologically born
but
male
I'm saying even vice versa. I mean, a male taking hormone replacement for years and years and years, of course they can get very, very close, but I don't think they could ever get to the point where it's like, okay, if this person was physically born a female and had gone through this is exactly where they would be.
No, of course not. It's impossible.
I think that this is really difficult to talk about because
we're going to offend somebody.
Well,
always, no matter what we say.
I'm under the belief, I believe that people transition when they believe they aren't born into the correct body.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I
agree.
I think when you hold that idea in your head, then it's really difficult to think that people would just transition to win more titles and get more money.
But it's happening.
Yeah,
it's happening.
I can see. I mean, I agree with you, but the sad reality is that people will do that for money, for scholarships.
Listen, you think about
and that's why this whole thing becomes the way it is so controversial, because of those people who will go do it for these purposes or do it for the wrong reasons, not because they genuinely feel that way or have that belief. It ruins everything.
That was the result. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough to give a full opinion about it. Mm-hmm. And really, I don't feel like my opinion would even be that well-rounded because I've never been in that position.
Correct.
1, I don't play sports. 2, I believe I'm in the right body. Like I haven't had
Yeah, I understand.
questions about my gender. So there are a lot of things that I feel like none of us can speak on about
Correct.
what people are doing to make themselves who they believe that they are.
Oh yeah, look, I don't want. This isn't so much. Does the person
What they can or can't
But I'm
do.
saying
What does
in
the
this-
person feel they should or should transition? That is a personal
But I'm
situation.
He was only talking about like
I'm
in
gonna-
the sports
I'll give you another,
playing
I'll give
field.
you another
like,
example, and this is a personal example. There's a teenage biological male that is not even started any type of, therapies yet, but identifies as a female, as a girl. Okay. 14, 15 years old, about 5'6", 140 pounds, and beats up little girls on a regular basis. And I mean drastically different, 5'2", 5'3", 80, 90, 100-pound girls. And this individual, okay, who is a trans girl, is beating up these little girls, right? This is happening regularly. And and I could give you a personal example. I don't want to because I don't want to put this person out there right now, but this is something that's happening now regularly. And I don't know if it's because the individual, and I'm not talking about broad, I'm talking about a very specific individual. I don't know if it's because this individual is
You're saying
acting out or whatever situation is, but
you're saying she's beating up
physically beating up girls because
regularly.
she feels she's a
not that many trans women are beating
correct.
up.
Yeah,
Oh,
correct.
okay.
I'm talking about a very
I
specific
think it was
person
pretty specified.
that I know of. Okay, that is and now the father, if she is ever in any way, shape, or form confronted by a male, goes after them, teenagers, grown man, because his trans daughter, okay, is a girl and shouldn't be fighting boys, right? So these are the types of situations that we are now facing in society. And me as a father, I'm firsthand dealing with a situation like this, right? So
I don't know enough to say it either, though. If they haven't started taking any hormones or anything, are they a trans girl?
That's
Or
how
are
she
they just
identifies.
a girl?
That's how she identifies.
But isn't trans
That's-
once you're like when you're transition like actually?
No.
Well, so
I
that's
didn't know.
So,
Okay,
hold on.
I'm
It
asking.
used to be, right? This definition, if you speak to a trans person, okay, that has gone through this process and they're older, they're going to tell you that they do not consider themselves part of the LGBTQ community. And I could give you a dozen people to speak to today that will tell you, do not call me, no, I'm a woman, okay? I was born, I had gender dysphoria, I was not happy with who I am. I was a different body. I went through the years of therapies, the hundreds of thousands of dollars of money and did all this. Like the people I personally know, I'm sure some of you feel differently, and no disrespect to you, but the person I find it sometimes offensive to be considered part of that community.
Right.
Right. So today's definition, trans, is very, very different. Trans used to mean transitioned. You
That's what I thought it was.
from one sex to the
Or
other.
like even if you are transitioning, correct?
But
That's what I
now it's
thought.
like if you identify as something else, you're trans, right? And I wish I could remember the term that one of the trans women that I speak to on a regular basis, she gave me, and it was something I wish I could remember this term so bad, because she said the problem that we have these days is not the people trying to find their way and understand if they're transitioning or not. It's transitional or transgender, something to that effect of basically trending, right? Like they were doing it as a trend, not because they were truly questioning their own sexuality or what body they were in. And they found that a big, big problem. But so anyway, this conversation obviously went a whole different direction than we expected it to. We started talking about the trans world, but it is what it is. Look, to end this off, I think we all agree that everyone has the right to do whatever they please with themselves and those around them. I feel that we certainly do have to find a way to incorporate and include everyone, regardless of their gender, their sexuality, how they identify, how they don't. It's just where is that middle ground, and how do we weed out those that have bad intention? I mean, there's so many questions that come with all of this. I think we all agree that women should have the opportunity to do whatever they want in life without any type of, roadblocks or barriers or rules or laws or societal expectations, which I would love to say, hey, we're going to knock that out of here tomorrow, but probably not reality.
We have to knock the house down and rebuild it.
To knock the house down and rebuild it. So, I don't know, fun conversation. Maybe we'll do a part 3 soon. But anything you guys want to add before we go?
No,
I like how you guys look at each other like, you want to blast them or should I blast them?
We'll do it in the comment section.
And again, guys, everything we talk about, we just play a little bit devil's advocate. Doesn't necessarily mean we agree agree or disagree or feel is right or wrong. We're just having open conversation and just getting some opinions here. Appreciate you guys for coming, giving your opinion, your thoughts, and your judgments on me. I appreciate that. And for everybody out there, let's make it happen.